Hello and welcome to another episode. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the CSS Box Model. But before we get started, if this video is useful for you or for somebody else that you know, please don't forget to share this with them. Also, if you're new to my channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you like this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Okay, so let's get started. So to get started with the CSS Box Model, the first thing I want you guys to do is go to w3schools.com. I want you to go to the CSS section, and then you're going to scroll down to where it says CSS Box Model. Okay, now in there, we're going to read a little bit, and then I'm going to start explaining this in our code. So as you know, all HTML elements can be considered boxes. A box in HTML could be a paragraph, could be a division, could be even an H1, right? So the CSS box model is used when talking about design and layout, as you can see here. Now, the CSS box model is essentially a box that wraps up every HTML element, and it consists of margins, the borders, the padding, and the actual content. So we have an image here below that is going to illustrate what the box model is. And this is something that we have been looking at for quite some time now in our previous chapters. If you want to check those chapters out, I am going to leave the link in the description below. But here is what we have been talking. So the box will have the content, right? This is the element. So this will have a content. Then you will see some padding around the content, which is some space between the content itself and the border. Then you will see the border. Then you're going to see a margin. Another way to illustrate the box model will be in the following image, which actually I showed you in our previous episode. So here's the content. The content has its own width and it has its own height. Then you will see a padding outside of the content. Then outside of that padding, you will see the border. And finally, outside of that border, you will see the margin. So that's exactly how a box model is done. Okay, this is a box model. This is a box model. And if we go back to our previous page, the one that we were coding yesterday, by the way, you will see here an example of the box model, even though this one doesn't have any border right now, and it doesn't have actually no padding. It just has simply the elements height and width, right? But we are going to code that, and I am going to teach you what's the difference in between one box and the other in just a moment. So let's go ahead and take a look into the different parts of the box model. So the content, right, which you see here. So the content of the box is where the text and images appear. In this case, and in this example, we see it has some text, right? Some other times we will input an image there. Some other times you will input whatever information you might think of, right? Depending on what website you're building. The padding area clears an area around the content, and the padding is transparent, which you may know because we cannot style a padding. It's just simply some type of spacing that you will see between the border and the content itself. So if we go back to our code, let's open that up. You will see that this element has a background color, it has a height, and it has a width. Now, right now, if we go back to our website, the text of the element is being displayed in the left-hand side on top of the corner, right, of this box. However, if we go ahead and we add a padding, let's say we're going to add a padding here. We're going to add a padding of, I don't know, let's say 10 pixels, right? And we save this information. Then when we hit refresh here, you see it gives the padding, it gives a little bit of space to the element, right? It moves a little bit the text. So that's what the padding does. It's transparent. It'll help you to locate your content in the right position. And it's going to definitely, and you definitely saw that because it actually, this text moved. If you have more questions about padding, you can visit our previous chapter. Again, I will leave the link in the description of this video. Now moving on, you will see a border. A border is what goes around the padding and the content. Okay, so let's add some border to this box so you can see the example. So Let's say that I want my border style to be, I don't know, let's say I want this to be dotted, right? Then let's say that I want my border, um, let's say that I want my border width to be, I don't know, let's say 10 pixels. And finally, let's add some border color, okay? And the color that we're going to set up for our border is going to be black so that you can see the difference here. I'm going to save this information and we're going to hit refresh. Okay, so there you go. So you see this is the border of our element, right? So now we've seen the content, right? Which is the text right here. And then we see the padding, right? Which is some space in between the border and also the content itself. And actually, let's make this a little bit smaller. Let's say 5 pixels. And let me, instead of saying dotted, I will say that I want my border to be solid. Let's make those changes. Let's hit save and let's hit refresh. Okay, there you go. So we have the border, right? Then we have here the content. And in between the border and the content, you see some space right there, which is transparent. That's the padding. Okay, and then finally, you will have outside of the border some other space that it's going to be transparent, which will be the margin. So let's go ahead and add some margin here. Let's say that our margin is going to be, I don't know, let's say 100 pixels so you can see the difference. So let's hit save and we're going to hit refresh. And there you go. So you see now it moved 100 pixels from top, left, bottom. So that's what the box model looks like. Okay, the box model will give you some information, which will be the content, right? You're going to see the padding, then you're going to see the border area and the margin, which is going to clear an area outside of the border, as you saw before, and it is transparent. Okay, now the box model allows us to add border around elements and define the space between the elements, which is what you just saw here. Okay, we already add so many things to our element and it moved. So the main reason that we have a box model here is because we want to organize the elements in a specific order. We want to make sure that we can move, I don't know, let's say this tiny box to the center of our web page. So that way it has a better user experience, right? It looks good and you create beautiful designs. Now, right now, obviously, I am not creating a beautiful design. I'm just explaining you what the box model is. But I hope that at this point, this makes sense to you. Now, another thing here that we can go ahead and actually see with the box model itself is understanding really what is doing the height and width of the element. Because if you see right now, we have added some height and width, but this changed as soon as I added the padding and I added some border into it, right? So it's important that you understand how much is the total width and height of an element when we do those type of changes. So going back here to W3 schools, when you set a width and height properties of an element with CSS, and I'm just reading here, you just set the width and height of the content area. Now, to calculate the full size of an element, which is what I was just talking about right now, you must also add the padding, the borders, and the margin. Okay, and then this is how you're going to calculate this. So let's say that our width is 320 pixels. Then we have 20 pixels, which is going to be the padding, then 10 pixels for the border, and 0 pixels for the margin. The total calculation of this element is going to be 350 pixels. And here we're just talking about the width, okay? So the total width of an element should be calculated like this. The element width should be the width plus the left padding, plus the right padding, plus the left border, plus the right border, plus the left margin, plus the right margin. If you see, is the width, so it's just left and right, right? Now the height, on the other hand, should be calculated like this. The total height of an element is going to be the height top, right? And well, actually it's going to be the height, I'm sorry. Then it's going to be the top padding and the bottom padding, the top border and the bottom border, and then the top margin, and it's going to be the bottom margin. So top and bottom, because that's what's going to tell you the height. And the width, on the other hand, is left and right, because that is what's going to tell you the width. So that's how you calculate the total amount of width and height of an element. So let's go ahead and take a look at some examples here in our code, right? I'm going to clear all this thing out here for you so that we can appreciate this a little bit better. And we're going to add another p tag here. Let's add a class of this p tag, which is going to be, I don't know, let's say border 2, okay? And we're just going to call it, okay, so the first one is called height example, so the second one is going to be called width example, okay? Width example. Yeah, that's the way it's going to be. So I'm going to hit save. We're going to go back to our style, and we are going to add here a border 1, and I'm going to add the border 2, which was the class that we gave to the second paragraph, right? Now I'm going to hit save. We're going to go back here, and I am going to hit refresh on my web page. There you go. So we have a height example and we have the width example. Okay, so in order to see what all that documentation meant, the best thing to look at is at the examples, right? So the first example I will put here, this is going to be for the height, and this one is going to be for the width. I'm just going to put those notations first because we definitely want to make sure that we're doing this properly, right? Okay, so I'm going to give a width of 100 pixels, and I'm going to give also a height of 100 pixels here, right? There we go. So now we have to add what? It says that this is a combination of the left padding, the right border, and the right margin, right? Left and right, left and right, left and right, and this is for the width. So we are going to say, let's go first with the padding. So let's put here padding, and we're gonna go top, right? Padding top. And then we're going to go, oops. So the padding top is going to be 10 pixels. Then the padding bottom is going to be as well 10 pixels. Okay, top and bottom, then the borders. So the border top is going to be, let's say, 10 pixels also, to make the maths easier for us. And the border bottom, it's going to be 10 pixels as well, right? Then what else it says here? So padding, border, and then the margin. Then the margin, we're going to give a margin top of 10 pixels as well. And then the margin bottom is going to be as well 10 pixels. And to this, I want to give a background color, so just so you can see the different boxes, right? And here we're going to say that the background color for our first example is going to be blue. And the border color, let's do the border color here. The border color is going to be black, okay? Okay, now going with the width is left and right, according to the example that we saw. So we're going to say padding left is going to be 10 pixels. Well, actually, let's do 20 pixels. Let's do 30 pixels here, okay, to make it a little bit more interesting. Then the padding right is going to be 30 pixels as well. Everything is going to be 30 pixels, by the way. We're just doing left and right now. This is for padding. Then we have the border, and we're going to say border left, right? And then, whoops. So border left, and we're going to give this 10 pixels. And then the border right is going to be 10 pixels. Oh, I said that everything was going to be 30. I'm sorry. So let's go ahead and change that out here. 30 pixels, 30 pixels. Border, then what else? So the margin, right? Margin left, margin, let's say margin, okay. Margin left. And then we're going to do margin right. Okay, perfect. So the margin left is going to be 30 pixels, and then the margin right is going to be 30 pixels as well, right? So watch this out closely. Then we're going to give this a background color of pink, just because, I don't know, so we can make a difference, right, between one example and the other. And then we're going to give a border color, border color, and the border color is going to be, let's say purple, just, I don't know, just because. Okay, so let's save this information. Now we're going to go back to our code and we're going to hit refresh. Boom. So here we see the difference between one and the other. Okay. So for the first example, if we want to calculate the height, right, of that first example, according to what it's explained here, you might say, oh, so the height of this element is it's only 100 pixels, right? So no, it's not. According to this, the total element height in here is going to be the height, and then you have to add the top and bottom padding, you have to add the top and border and bottom border, and then you have to add the top and bottom margin. So how much is the total height of the first element? If we go ahead and we do our math, we have 10, well, actually, just so you can see this a little bit more clear, let's use our notepad. So I'm going to copy all this information, I'll paste it here, and what we're going to remove is just the background colors, right? Blue and black, because we don't need that. We only want to do the calculation of our pixels. So, okay, the first one has 100, the second one 10, the third one 10. I guess that you already have the answer of this, but I just want to make it crystal clear for you so that you can know how to calculate the total height of an element. Okay, so we have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 60 pixels, and then we have to add 100. So the total in here is 160 pixels, right? So correct me if I'm wrong, but the height of the first border is 160 pixels. Why? Because 100, then we add 10, it's 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, 160. So the total height is not 100 pixels. The total height of this element will be 160 pixels. Okay, so now it's your turn to do border 2. I guess that you already know how to do it. And if you want to go ahead and do it by your own, just pause the video and do it, okay? But I'm going to give you the answer right now. So how much is going to be the width of the second one? So the border number 2 width is going to be, we're going to copy all of this, and of course we're going to delete this. Right? And what we are going to say, we're going to put everything ordered properly, just so you can see this. Okay, so the total width. Forgot to add this here. The total height. Okay, so I guess that you already did the second one at this point, and if you already have the answer, just go ahead and compare it to the one that I'm going to give you right now. So we have 30, 60, 120, 180. So the total width here is 280 pixels. If you have that answer, then you are right. Okay, so the width, if we go ahead and we calculate it, it's 100, then we add 30, it's 130, and then we add 30 more, it's 160, then 30 more, it's 190, then 30 more is 220, then 30 more, it's 250, then 30 more is 280 pixels. Okay, so I guess that these two examples made it easier for you to understand what it's written in here, but if you still have questions about how this works, remember that you can always leave your questions in the comment section below. And as soon as I read them, I will make sure that I reply to them so that you can be more crystal clear than ever. Okay. So yes, that's pretty much how you can calculate the total width and height of an element. So there's only one more thing that I want to show you about the box model. And for this, I want you guys to scroll all the way down. You're going to go to CSS Advanced, and this is a feature on CSS 3. Okay, so you go all the way down and you're going to go where it says CSS Box Sizing. Okay, so the CSS box sizing, it's a property that is going to allow you to include the padding border in an element's total width and height. Okay, now why are you going to use this box sizing? Because sometimes you want to include the padding and the border elements in the total width or height of your element in order to make sure that some boxes are not tiny when you add the padding and then the other one is bigger and so on. Okay, so let me just show you a couple of examples. We're going to take a look at two examples at this website, w3schools.com, and then we're going to play around with it into our code. Okay, so without the CSS box sizing property, by default, the width and height of an element is calculated, and we already saw this before, but here is only adding the width, padding, and border, right, of the actual width of the element. Now, the height is also calculated by adding the padding and the border of the actual element itself. So this means that when you set up the width and height of an element, the element often appears bigger than what you have said, obviously, because the element's border and padding are added to the element's specified width and height. So let's take a look at some illustrations so you can see how this works. So this as an example, and we're going to go into the code, by the way. I'm going to scroll a little bit down. We're going to hit try it yourself. Okay, so here we have two divs, right? The div one, here are the properties that were used. So the width is 300 pixels, the height is 100 pixels, right? Then the border is 1 pixel solid blue, and you see that in here. Now, the div number 2 has also a width of 300 pixels and a height of 100 pixels. But we are adding now a padding of 50 pixels, and we're leaving 1 pixel of solid red for the border. By adding those 50 pixels, our box is changing. Now it's bigger. You see how this is actually making a mix into our into our code right here? And as a result, you see a bigger box than the one that you were expecting, because probably you were thinking that by adding the same width and height, your box was going to remain the same size. Well, let me tell you that it's not going to happen that way, because you added a padding to the second box, right? And it made it bigger. So that used to cause a problem. So now with this new property that I am showing you, this is going to solve this problem. Okay, let's go back to the box sizing. So the box sizing property is going to resolve this problem, because the box sizing property allows us to include the padding and border in an element's total width and height. So if you set the box sizing to border box as value on an element, the padding and the border are included in the width and the height. So let's take a look at that example at W3 Schools here. If we go ahead and we click here, try it yourself, now we see that we have a width of 300 pixels, a height of 100 pixels, the border is 1 pixel solid blue, and now we're including here a box sizing of border box, okay? And then on the second example, we see we have a width of 300 pixels, height of 100 pixels. Now we're adding a padding of 50 pixels, a border of 1 pixel solid red, and the box sizing will be border box as well, right? So by adding the box sizing border box, what you're doing is making both boxes stay with the same width and height. Okay, that's why both of them are used, and that's what you should be looking at in here. Now, what I'm going to do here is show you an example into our code. And I want to clarify that the box sizing property, it has around 2 values. Okay, let's go back to our text before I show you the example. Okay, so the box sizing has and let's click in here where it says box sizing. So there are 2 things that you will see. The default value, which is the content box, that's the first value. And this content box value, what it does is that it gives you the default value of the box. So this doesn't do anything. In other words, it's just keeping the default value. But if you go ahead and you use in box sizing the property called border box, that's the one that we just saw at the example here at W3 schools. And that's the one that is going to help you keep the boxes at the same width and height, right? So let's go back to our code here. And we're going to delete the width, padding left, padding right. Actually, we're going to do kind of like the same example that was done before, just so you can see and compare the 2 boxes. We're going to add, and let's go back to our editor to the first example. So we're going to add a width, height, and a border, okay, to the first example. So let's do that in our code. So we're going to add a width, okay, then we're going to add a height, then we're going to add a border. Okay, we're going to add a border. And let's see. Okay, so we're going to add exactly the same in our second one. And I definitely want to make this look good indented. Okay, so let's say that our width is going to be 300 pixels, right? Our height is going to be 100, or let's say, I don't know, 600 pixels, just so you can see it. And this thing right here is also going to be 300 pixels, and the height is going to be 600 pixels. Now, in the example that we see here, the border is 1 pixel and the color is solid. Well, actually, it's solid and it's blue. We're going to make it 2 pixels. We're going to make it also solid, and we're going to make it black. And in the other one, we are going to make this 2 pixels. We're going to make it solid, and we're going to make it red, right? Just so we can see the differences. Now, on the second example, we add a padding of 50 pixels, right? So let's do the same in here. So padding is going to be here 50 pixels, okay? I'm going to hit save, and now take a look and see what's going to happen in our code. If I hit refresh, oops, I guess I gave too much on the height. Let's go back to, I don't know, let's make the height be 100 pixels to both of them. Okay, 100 pixels. Let's hit save and let's hit refresh. Okay, there you go. So this one is not including the padding, you see? There is no padding on the one on top. If we add a padding here, if we add a padding of 50 pixels in this one right here, save this, what is going to happen is that this content that says height sample is going to be moved to the same location where the width example is. Right now it's at the corner, in the left side corner, right, of the box. So now I added the padding. I'm going to hit refresh. Let me hit save here, and I'm going to hit refresh. And boom, you see now 2 boxes are in the same size, and the content was moved as well because we gave a padding. Now, let's say that sometimes you don't want to do that. I mean, you don't want to have a padding there. You just want this height example to remain in that corner. But you want these 2 boxes to be the same size, the same width and height. So as we saw here, we fixed that by using the box sizing property. So let's go ahead and let's add here box sizing. And we're going to say it's going to be the border box, okay? And we're going to add here also a box sizing. And we're also going to say that it's going to be the border box. We're going to hit save, And now we're going to go back to our example. When I hit refresh, boom. You see? Now we have the two boxes the same size, but there is no padding in the first one, so the content remains in the corner, and the second one still has that padding. So that's the main reason why you will use the box sizing property. Now, I hope this has been clear to you. If it's not, remember to leave the questions in the comment section below. Now, there is one more thing that I want to add here. We're going to add a margin, okay? We're going to add a margin here of 10 pixels, and we're going to add a margin at the bottom of the 10 pixels as well. Margin of 10 pixels here. Just so you can see, because in our previous explanation, I was counting the margin as well as the total height and width. So if I hit refresh, what the margin is doing now, keeping the same box sizing, right? And is just moving them 10 pixels of space between one and the other. Okay, if we remove the margin of the first one, and we remove the margin of the second one, and we hit save, and now I hit refresh, then it goes back to where it was before. Okay, so that was it for this video today, everyone. Remember, if you're new to my channel and you haven't hit that subscribe button, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. That way you can get notified every time that I upload a video. As well, if you find this video useful for you or for somebody else that is studying right now CSS, please go ahead and share it with them. You might be helping somebody else. And as always, remember that you can always ask Lixi. Bye, everyone, and see you again in the next episode.